What's up YouTube? Justin Deseck, London, Ontario Realtor here. Today, we're gonna bring you something a little bit more serious. We're gonna talk about the 10 commandments during the mortgage process. Okay, so you must be wondering, what am I talking about? What are these mortgage commandments that you've got to follow? Well, really, they're there to help you. A lot of lenders are not going to tell you this stuff. Mortgage brokers may not tell you this stuff. If you've got a good realtor, they should have this conversation with you as well. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the money, the important thing, what you need to close your deal. The bank decides they want to give you the money, great, but there are mistakes you can make that can make the bank change their mind. So these 10 commandments are going to help prevent any changes from the bank's commitment to help give you that money for that deal. So if you follow these rules to live by, the 10 commandments, your deals are closed, and that's important. The first commandment, thou shalt not change jobs. If you've had a job for 10 years and then all of a sudden you decide you might want to change jobs right before you're buying a house or after you've already bought a house, that's a no-no. If you're self-employed and you haven't been in that same line of work for the last 2 years minimum, that's also a no-no. So all these things are very important. If you've just started a new job, it's probably best to wait about 6 months before you start applying for a mortgage. Or if you're self-employed, you want to make sure you have 2 consistent years of income to be able to apply for that mortgage. But if you're changing jobs after you bought a house, they could totally take your money away. And you need that money, so don't change your jobs. Thou shalt not change jobs. So the second commandment is thou shalt not cosign for anyone. The bank is going to be looking at your financial obligations, and if you've invited somebody else's financial obligations into your house, well, guess what? It might affect the bank's ability to lend you money. So don't do it. Thou shalt not cosign for anyone. Moving on to the third commandment, thou shalt not buy a vehicle. Any inquiries to your credit is going to affect the bank's ability to lend you money to buy that house. So if after you've got your offer accepted, you decide to go out and buy a new car, guess what? They could change their mind and decide not to give you the money on closing day. So don't do it. Thou shalt not buy a vehicle, or you may be living in it. The fourth commandment, thou shalt not use credit cards excessively or make any late payments. The bank wants to know that you're a good person to lend the money to, and any excessive use of that credit card after you've agreed to buy the house and they've agreed to give you the money, makes them a little leery about your credit worthiness. The same thing if you're going to make late payments. If you look at your credit report, there's a whole bunch of letters and numbers on there, and if those things are changing before your deal closes, the bank might get a little nervous about lending you that money. So just don't do it. Don't use your credit cards excessively, and definitely don't make any late payments. Thou shalt not use credit cards excessively or make any late payments. Okay, so moving on to the fifth commandment. Thou shalt not spend money you've set aside for closing costs. Ultimately, the bank is going to lend you the balance of the purchase price. You're going to have paid some of that money with your deposit, with your agreement of purchase and sale. You've got to bring the difference at closing. So you should be setting that money aside for your land transfer, your closing costs, and probably a little extra just in case, right? You want to make sure that you set that money aside and you don't spend it. Thou shalt not spend money you've set aside for closing costs. The sixth commandment, and this one's a good one and a very important one. Thou shalt not omit debts and liabilities from your loan application. Be very honest with your lender from the get-go about what you owe. An old car loan, unpaid student debt, credit cards, whatever it is, it's going to come up eventually. And if it comes up at the wrong time, your loan could get denied and then you don't get the house. So don't let that happen. Be very open and honest about everything you owe so they can put the numbers in and decide what they're willing to lend you. Do not omit debts and liabilities from your credit application. All right, so moving on to the seventh commandment. And this one's actually my favorite because it happens all the time. Thou shalt not buy furniture prior to completion. It's really exciting that you just bought a new house and you want to buy all new furniture for it, but don't do that because, again, if you go and take out a whole new loan to buy $30,000 worth of furniture, the bank's going to be like, hey, wait a minute. Your ability to borrow has just changed, and that can affect your ability to close the deal. So, thou shalt not buy furniture prior to completion. Wait until after closing day. And by the way, we can offer you a special discount on furniture and appliances at certain places as realtors. So just ask us about that stuff, but don't be in a hurry to buy it. Thou shalt not buy furniture unnecessarily prior to completion. Okay, so we're down the line to the 8th commandment. This one's with regard to inquiries to your credit. Thou shalt not invite any further inquiries to your credit prior to completion. Ultimately, anytime you do a hard check on your credit, your score will come down just a little bit. And if you go below that threshold where the bank's comfortable to lend you the money at, they decide they don't want to lend you the money. So, thou shalt not invite inquiries to your credit prior to completion. So, moving on to the 9th commandment. This one is with regard to activity that the bank may see happening in your bank account prior to closing. And the commandment goes, thou shalt not make large deposits without first checking with your lender. If you have all of a sudden a $50,000 deposit into your checking or savings account, the bank's going to wonder where that money came from. They may think it's a loan from another institution. So don't do it. You have to make sure that you disclose what's going on prior to completion with your lender. Be like, hey, I just got this bonus, or hey, I got a windfall at the casino. You're gonna have to have documentation to back up what that money is for. Give it to them before they ask for it, and you should be okay. But probably just avoid large deposits in the first place. Thou shalt not make large deposits without telling the bank what's going on. And here we are, the 10th commandment. Thou shalt not pay off any collection accounts or close accounts prior to completion. The bank is ultimately looking at all your debts and obligations, and they're making that decision based on your current payments and what you owe. And actually, it's counterintuitive, but paying off or closing an account is actually going to lower your credit score. So if you want to do it, wait till after closing. Prior to completion, it could screw up the bank's ability to give you that money at completion. So thou shalt not pay off any collections or close accounts prior to completion. Okay, so there you have it, the 10 commandments during the mortgage process. As real estate professionals, it's our job to help buyers and sellers navigate all things real estate from A to Z. There's a lot of important things to know to do, but just as important, things not to do, which is where the 10 commandments during the mortgage process comes into play. If you want to download that resource, you can go to my website at justindeseck.com. Under the resource tab, you'll find it, or you can click the link below. While you're at it, feel free to like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.